So this is a bit of a rush job because I'm going to a Warhammer session on Saturday and I realise that I am one tank short. So just printing out a tank, it's called a Chaos Predator Annihilator. So yeah, I'll be doing some rush kind of paint jobs to get it somewhat good before I'm ready to head off on Saturday. Thought I'd do a few progress shots, see how the printing is. The first one was at 7%, so this one now is at 16%, and you can see the foundations underneath have all been kind of finished. So yeah, I'll give you updates from time to time. Alright, just checking in, seeing how we are going. 51%, so we are getting there. 67%. And here we are at 82% and a couple of hours left to go. And here is the printed model. I tend to always print in white. It's just what I've always kind of done. Like the printing, the ripping off of the supports, priming and the painting. So I'll just do little snippets of each stage so that this isn't an hour-long video. But it's all going to be done over like 3 days, as it's pretty much a rush job. I use what they call tree supports for the most part. There are some exceptions. There are some certain cases where traditional supports, which are much more just like rectangular, are good, but really tiny models, I find tree supports don't work so well. So like really small stuff, traditional supports can be better. But the bigger you get, the better that tree supports are, for a couple of reasons. One is that there's less waste, like less support itself. But the other and more important reason, really, than the amount of plastic you waste, is that they're a lot easier to remove. And if you think about a tree, like a big root coming up to thin branches, they touch the model far less, so they interfere with the quality of the 3D print far less. So that is why I'm a fan of tree supports. Once again, depending on the size of the model, I usually start with bigger pliers than these ones, but it's been a fairly small model, so I think these pliers should do the job for the most part. I also, when I'm removing supports, have a modified flat screwdriver, which I kind of got a grinder to the tip of, and that's almost like a knife. I find that that's really good for getting small little bits that are in between a model and flicking them out. So that's why I've got that one handy in case I need it. They're also good for, like, I glue magnets to the bases because I transport them on metal trays, and so that's why I have these little areas for the magnets to get glued into. So there is the final model of the tank and all the supports that have been removed to clean it up. Now the next stage of cleaning, because I print in white, I have this black cloth that I find helps make it easier to see the small white strings on the model. I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see any of this at all, so I'll make this one really short. But yeah, basically with a black background on the white, I use my craft or hobby knife to get these tiny little strings that happen when you 3D print. So just to do the final cleanup, yeah, craft knife. Yeah, those strings really are so small, I don't think that you would have been able to see much of that process. So now that we have removed the supports and removed what stringing we could, you never get absolutely everything, but that's alright. It's time to prime the model, and the whole idea of priming, of course, is it just makes it easier for the paint to adhere to the PLA type plastic. PLA, it does have different characteristics than like the models that you buy in hobby shops. Like that sort of plastic is very different. For example, the modeling cement that you can buy in hobby shops, that works by slightly fusing two pieces of plastic together by melting the plastic a bit. Well, you can put that on this stuff, but it doesn't melt anything, so it just literally does not work. So yeah, so PLA has its own sort of properties, and that's fine. But the idea of the priming, getting back to on topic, is that yeah, I prime my models first, you let that dry, and then you paint on top of the primer. Because the base of this model is a very military sort of like green, it's a Montmartre called olive something, olive green. There you go. I'm using a Vallejo black primer. Quite often for my models I use more of a grey than the black, and I do also have some specific kind of military style primers for my infantry and tanks and other sort of models like that, but yeah, the grey is what I usually use. But in this case I thought the black would work better. So focus on the top of the model for this run through, and then I'll do the underneath separately after the top's dried so I can put it down. And there's a little bit of stringing underneath. Like I say, it's impossible to get everything the first time through. You always find stuff later on. And it's turning it from a very white model to a very black model. Alrighty. We're getting there. Okay, so normally I'd do a colour block first and then put the final colour on if I was working with like the Vallejo finer paints, but in this case I am not. I'm just using the actual colour it will end up being. This olive green colour by Montmartre. It's what I pretty much do all my tanks in. So yeah, I like the look of it from military type of craft and vehicles. So obviously you want to do your bigger colours first. So like I'll do the green and then I'll do the turrets and that, and the tracks for that matter, are all in a metallic colour. Using a very big and rough brush for this type of work. Does not have to be a fancy brush, which would just get damaged too much trying to do such a big surface. And not needing to be overly careful. I mean, any splatter onto other things is fine because the other things will get painted in turn. Should get the other tank I have. Like this is the second. I need a second one for the game I'm going to be going to. But I should grab out the other one so I can use it as a reference. Okay, look, that's a green tank. I find this clear Gorilla Glue is the best for this type of work. At least I've had the best results out of it. Not a fan of the gel glue, but the clear works really, really well. They should stay in place, but especially with the smaller miniatures. I find it's best to always just put a bit of sticky tape over the top and keep them in place. I have had issues. That's why I try when I print these cylinders to put them in to separate them as much as possible, because if they get too close to one another they tend to attract and pull the magnets out until they're set.